Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-hosts, including Shannon Lane, Newmark Knight Frank, Drew Hanlon, Matthew Shapiro, Obermeyer, Frank Hennessy, Premier Planning, and Roland Mosselman, Align Analytics. Let's see. Matthew, would you please give us a rundown on who we have on the show today? Thank you.
I'd love to. We have a great show coming up. We're starting off with Bovaird Nevins, the president of PIDC, Matthew O'Mara, the co-founder of Spraoi, Paul Rimar, executive director of patient care coordination, and wrapping it up with Bill Evans, CEO of Liberty Fox Technologies.
Let's get to know our first guest, Bovaird Nevins, president of PIDC. And what is PIDC? What are you guys doing?
PIDC is Philadelphia's Economic Development Corporation, and we help businesses and entrepreneurs grow and thrive throughout Philadelphia.
Okay. Where are you from originally?
I was born in New York City, but grew up primarily in the Philadelphia suburbs.
New York City and then the Philadelphia suburbs. And how many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order for that?
I am the oldest of two. I have one younger sister.
All righty. And tell me a little bit about 8 to 14. Like, what was the primary thing you're involved with? Was it chess club? Was it making money, babysitting, studying at school? What was the main thing you were doing 8 to 14?
I mostly did gymnastics with a focus on the balance beam.
Tell me a little bit more about what did you find attractive about gymnastics and challenging about gymnastics?
I loved gymnastics ever since I was a little girl, and particularly anything that would allow me to focus on balance and flexibility. Those are my favorites.
Well, what does balance and flexibility have to do with being, it says here you're the president of PIDC.
That's got a lot of balance, and I think flexibility to it. We have a really diverse city in Philadelphia that has a lot of needs, and we've got to balance those needs and work on being flexible with how we put our resources to work to best meet the needs in our community.
Drew?
And tell us about mom and dad.
So both of my parents have a legal background. My dad was a corporate attorney, and my mom actually went back to school when I was in middle school to go to law school. And she ultimately took her career forward in career planning, helping other folks graduating from law school find their career paths.
Wow. And did mom and dad come watch you compete when you were doing gymnastics?
They absolutely did. I certainly think that, that both made me feel really supported in what I was doing. But, also, especially from dad, there was a lot of push to do my best, not just in gymnastics, but kind of across the board.
Do you think that had any impact on your leadership today?
Absolutely. I think that impacts how I try to work with our team members in terms of hopefully providing an environment where they are positioned for success, supported for success, and also pushed to do their best.
Frank?
So, Ann, talk more about gymnastics. How young were you when you started?
I was about 3.
And how long did you stay with it?
Until I was about 13. And then ultimately, I actually coached gymnastics too when I got a little older.
Okay, so that's a long time for a grueling sport. What made you stop?
Well, I felt like it was time at that point to transition into team sports. That was something that I had missed out on a little bit, focusing on gymnastics when I was young and hadn't had the opportunity to really do things where I was a part of a big team.
So you got balance and flexibility from gymnastics. What did you learn from a team sport?
Well, I think the team sports allowed me to really figure out that it's not just about, the individual. You really have to be focused on how you can succeed as a part of a team, whether that's in a leadership position or whether that's in whatever role that you play.
Roland?
And I was thinking gymnastics is hours and hours of practice and training that boil down to a few minutes at the event. That must have required a lot of concentration when you were doing that.
Absolutely.
How did that relate to what you do now?
So I think that idea of staying focused under pressure is coming in very handy, especially now. I just took on this new leadership role at PIDC at the end of January. And so the last 5 months of that have certainly been very different than what I might have anticipated. It's taken a lot of focus to stay focused on what we need to do.
Mm-hmm. Shannon?
And in the green room, you mentioned you have 2 sons. I'm curious what they've taught you that you bring with you into work every day.
I think it's a little bit back to that idea of balance and flexibility. I did not grow up with boys in the household, had, mostly girl cousins that we were close with. And so raising 2 young boys has been a big learning experience for me, and that need to be adaptable and figure out what people need in the moment that might be different from how I think has definitely been something that I've learned from them.
Mm-hmm. Matthew?
And you grew up in the Philadelphia suburbs. You still live there?
No, actually, I live in the city. Everybody that works at PIDC lives in Philadelphia.
And tell me about the neighborhood you live in the city of Philadelphia.
So I live in Fairmount. It is a wonderful, energetic, dynamic, dense community, very different from where I grew up. But the greatest thing I love about our neighborhood is how close we are to the parks and the open space. And certainly, again, over the last few months, that's been really incredible to have both the density and excitement of continuing to live in the city, but still be close to the parks and the open space.
I'm also curious. You grew up with a lawyer father and a mother who went to law school and became a lawyer while you were growing up. What did that do to you?
Well, I think that, the law and the law as a career path, to me, really always seemed to be about public service. And so that, I think, had a lot of influence on the career path that I ultimately followed, even though I did not end up going to law school. I went to business school instead, which was not the most popular decision, I think, in my family, but I think it served me well. And at the same time, I was able to keep that focus on the notion of public service in my career and follow that mission-driven path.
Mm-hmm. Next question. Who's got it? Mm-hmm.
Speaking about public service, when you were younger, was there any foundation of public service, or did you see that anywhere?
So my mom's dad, my grandfather on my mother's side, was a public servant. He had been in the military and then he transitioned into government. My mom grew up just outside of Washington, D.C. And I think, I was very close with my grandfather, and I think seeing his career and the dedication that he had in government service was really inspirational to me growing up.
What did that mean to you to see that? Like, why was that inspirational?
I don't know. I think I always, came away, and this I'm sure was, instilled by both of my parents, with the idea that for those to whom much is given, much is required. And I think I saw, government service and public service or mission-driven work more generally as a way to do that, not really every day in my career.
To those,
are you smiling all day? Like, you've been smiling, big smile since we got on the air. I was just curious, where'd that come from?
Well, that probably is a little bit more from my mother's side. I try to, I think I get a lot of empathy from her, and recognizing that the way that I act and how I conduct myself has an impact on other people. I do try to keep a, positive outlook and, convey that to others around me.
To those who much is given, much is what? Where'd you get that from? How'd you get that?
Well, I did a lot of reading when I was growing up. That was probably one of the other things that I did in addition to gymnastics, was a lot of reading. Biographies were among my favorite things, including biographies of the Kennedy brothers. Again, probably going back to my grandfather's, public service. That's when he started in government, was in the 1960s. And that's a quote that I think was passed down in the Kennedy family as well. That notion, again, to whom much is given, much is required.
Mm-hmm. You believe that, don't you?
I do, absolutely. And I try to, live that every day in my work. And I think that that's what PIDC as an organization is about, which makes me proud to work there.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Well, every day, we are really trying to focus on what are the needs in Philadelphia? We have a big city. We have a city that it has a lot of needs in terms of how people and business owners can thrive.
What's the website address of your organization?
It's PIDCphila.com.
We've been speaking with Ann Bovaird Nevins, president of PIDC here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, it's executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, please stick around. Don't go away. We'll be back in a moment right after this quick break.
You now can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your advisors. Yes, this radio and online social media exposure is free and quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors.
Back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Matthew O'Mara, who's co-founder of an organization known as Spraoi. Matthew, what is Spraoi? What are you guys doing?
An insurance technology provider.
Insurance technology provider. And where are you from originally?
Medford, New Jersey, a suburb of Philadelphia.
All right. And how many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
I'm the oldest of three. I have a younger brother and a younger sister.
Okie dokie. Drew?
Matt, you told us in the green room you enjoyed playing baseball. What was your role on the team?
Never really outstanding at any one position, but I guess my role was to keep the things light amongst the team, and I had the distinction of playing all 9 positions the last few years I played.
What's that tell us about you?
You got to be flexible. You got to be able to do what it takes to move the team forward, and if that means you're catching one day and you're playing left field the next, then so be it. Whatever it takes to win, whatever it takes to make the team go forward.
Did those lessons transition over to today?
Oh, certainly. Especially the last 3+ years working with Spraoi. One day you're doing financials, the next day you're doing sales, the next day you're doing testing on a software release.
Mm-hmm. Roland?
Tell us, Matt, what does Spraoi mean?
It's the Gaelic word for fun.
Okay, so you brought fun to the dugout. You named your company Fun. How else has the fun been sort of translated into what you do in a serious area like insurance and healthcare?
Well, my co-founders and I really stress bringing a fun and positive attitude to what we do. At the end of the day, we're spending the large preponderance of our time away from our families doing this. If we weren't enjoying it, then why are you doing it? There's a lot of other things people can do for a living.
Frank?
Matt, you said when you were really young, you had your own business. What was the business?
Mowing lawns was my first job.
How young were you?
I was 9 when I first started, and it started with the first client I had was my parents.
So what did you do differently than any other lawn cutter? Did you grow the business?
I did. I was able to grow the business to over 10 lawns, and I just would go to lawns that were poorly maintained and say, hey, I could do this for you, and this is what I think I can provide. And you provided what the client wanted, and they had a tendency to say yes.
How did that help to lay the foundation for what you do today?
I think you learn that if nothing ventured, nothing lost, nothing gained either. At the end of the day, you have to go out there and chase what you want. And at the end of the day, if you're responsive to your clients, people will stick with you.
Mm-hmm. Shannon?
Matt, tell us a little bit about mom and dad and what they were like when you were growing up.
They were a wonderful foundation for me and my siblings. Very positive influence, stability. They'll be married 50 years next month. My father was with the same company for 37 years when he retired. being able to provide that type of stability and foundation was very reassuring as a young kid.
And how does that translate to what you're doing today?
I think I bring a lot of the fundamentals that my father brought in terms of client service, client respect, respect your customer, respect your colleagues, that made him so successful, and my mother's fun, loving attitude that she brings, and the friendships that she's maintained over the years, over the many decades, are indicative of hopefully something that I can carry forward.
Matthew?
Yeah, you told us in the green room that there was a neighborhood lawn mowing rival. Tell us a little bit about that rivalry.
Well, the kid who lived across the street, he and I would each had a number of lawns, and there was a kind of an unspoken rivalry. It translated to basketball and other sports, and it was kind of an unspoken thing, but we were both competitive with one another, and it extended absolutely to the number of lawns we had to mow.
And so he was older than you, right?
He's a couple years older, correct.
And when he had the lawn mowing company first?
Yes, sir.
And how many lawns was he cutting when you started?
I believe he had 7 or 8.
So did you get past them?
Ultimately, I did. I also had the benefit of youth. I was a little younger, and he had to move on and do other things. So not only did I have more lawns by the end, but I ultimately outlasted him in the business as well.
So it sounds like that winning is kind of important to you, is it?
Sure, absolutely. What's worth doing is worth doing well and worth winning at, and translates back to sports. I was never the standout player on the team, but I would absolutely do anything it took to help that team be successful as it could be.
And so what do you take from that competition and that rivalry that you bring with you to business today?
It's just a willingness to do what it takes to participate in any number of different roles. One day it's dealing with a client problem. The next day it could be testing a piece of software. Whatever it is on that given day, you do what it takes to get the job done.
So how do you win today? What makes you feel like you won?
I judge it by team success. Spraoi has continued to grow. Its first 3 years, year over year, every year. 18, 19, 20 are better than 17, and we're looking forward to 21 being even better than 20. Mm-hmm. So that's right now. Team success is my success.
Frank.
So Matt, you mentioned you transitioned at some point from baseball to golf, and that's very important to you. What's that all about?
Yeah, ultimately I found golf to be more rewarding as a pursuit, I think also because I wasn't the best baseball player. But more importantly, I found that the strategies that you employ from golf course to golf course created a curiosity for me. What works at one course doesn't work at another. And so you have to be able to learn and adapt. And the adaptability and the differences of approach employed really is something that intrigues me even to this day about the game.
Mm-hmm. Roland?
Matt, you told us in the green room that you sort of had a career plan, that you wanted to join a good consulting firm, become a partner. Your father had been in the same company for 37 years. So after advising others, what made you decide to do your own thing?
Well, it became a matter of determining a path forward that allowed me to put my money where my mouth was and prove out the solutions that I was recommending to my clients. And being able to have this as a proof point has helped me understand better how to provide advice and counsel to my clients.
Mm-hmm. Matthew, how large or how small is your team?
So we are approximately 40 people globally.
And what was going on in your childhood that prepared you for building a team of 40 people?
I think a recognition of talent and understanding the talented people in this world. I think it's also about fostering a community and a spirit and a camaraderie that makes people want to work together.
Matthew?
Matt, you told us that Spraoi is Gaelic for fun, and you talked about fun. Why Gaelic?
Well, O'Mara is pretty much a dead giveaway. My Irish heritage is something of pride for me, and as an Irish American, and so it seemed like a wonderful opportunity to move that forward. Now our rivalry is with Spraoi and the Spraoi Festival in Ireland, and in the pecking order on Google.
Mm-hmm. So you used the word proud, and I don't know. We're getting to know you, and you are a proud kind of guy, aren't you?
Absolutely. I think everybody, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of my family, proud of where I'm from, and proud of where I'm going.
What do you figure your greatest accomplishment's been?
Oh, goodness. I would say, first of all, I like to think I'm an excellent judge of character. And I was fortunate to find a wonderful partner in my wife, Nisa.
I thought you were going to tell me about your business stuff. I read the newspapers. I thought it was all about money, 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 but you didn't go in that direction. You sure you don't want to change your mind?
Relationships are the best currency, Herb.
What?
Relationships are the best currency.
Relationships are the best currency, but you can't take that to the bank. I can't put a relationship. What are you talking about here?
You take them with you every day of your life.
You take them with you every day of your life. So you really rely on relationships. That's where the reason you're so proud that you're good at reading people is you really, you can trust people, don't you?
Sure.
Huh.
And I like to think they can trust me.
Oh, I thought business was all blood and guts and people suing people, but you're a trusting kind of guy.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, Herb.
Where'd this wisdom come from? Was this mom or dad?
A little bit of both. I have to be honest. I can't give credit to either one of them. I think they did a great job as a team with all three of us.
I figured you'd say talking about a team. What's the website address of this organization known as Spraoi?
Spraoi, SPRAOI.ai.
We've been speaking with Matthew O'Mara, co-founder of Spraoi, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, stick around. Back in a moment, right after this break. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Paul Rimar, who is the Executive Director of Patient Care Coordination. Paul, what is Patient Care Coordination? What are you guys doing?
So we are a service coordination entity providing care management to individuals with disabilities and older adults.
How many folks do you take care of a year?
4,000, over 4,000.
You take care of over 4,000 people a year. This is a business you started. Where you're from originally?
Born in Silver Spring, Maryland, and grew up in Northeast Philadelphia.
How young were you when you moved to Northeast Philadelphia, and why? And with who?
6, and I moved with my mother. She remarried.
And you also moved in with your grandparents, your mom and your grandparents, if I remember correctly.
Correct. My grandparents moved along with us.
Uh-huh. Where's your mom and your grandparents from?
They are from Russia.
Uh-huh.
So I'm a first generation.
So they came from Russia to the United States. What year?
78, 79.
78, 79. And then you moved with your divorced mom and your grandparents to Northeast Philadelphia. Okay. Yes. All right. This is interesting. Frank, why don't you take it from here?
So, Paul, your business is all about being an advocate, essentially for those who are struggling or can't be their own advocate, like the aged or the disabled. So where did you recognize the need for advocacy in those struggling when you were young?
So it all came from seeing my family, my mom, my grandparents, my uncle come to this country with a struggle, kind of getting acclimated to, the United States, coming from Russia.
How did you advocate? How did you help one another get past the struggles?
So basically they advocated for each other, not knowing anybody here. And, eventually I came into the picture, but, just seeing the struggles that they were going through and seeing what they needed to do in order to survive in the country with just a minimal amount of finances. And
how does that influence your decision-making today? You seem to have a real positive spin on it.
Gotcha.
Knowing that anything is possible, knowing that you have to continue to take risks, and that, the individuals that I serve right now also have struggles that they have to go through, and they need somebody advocating for them.
So, Paul, you told us that you kind of witnessed your mom kind of struggling, financially, socially, environmentally, but somehow she always kept a positive attitude and kept kept on keeping on, and what did that mean to you to see your mom do that?
A lot. It basically molded me into the person that I am today. Seeing her struggle, the tears, and knowing that, again, anything is possible and you have to continue to move forward in order to ultimately succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you hear your mom telling you today, when you're faced with a tough decision?
That you're moving forward. There's no such thing as failure. You have it in you. I'm here with you, and we're going to make this happen.
Roland?
Yeah, you mentioned, we heard, your grandparents moved to the U.S., your mom then moved up to Northeast Philly. Both of those were sort of a leap of faith, right, on their part. How is that translated in your own choices for your business?
So I really took a leap of faith in the time that I was opening up the organization and resigning from my position then, and really not having a full-on income coming through. And, at that time, my mom took another leap of faith in me, trust in me, and basically was my investor.
Mm-hmm. So this was just a small part of her access she gave you she lent it to you. But it was a small part of what she had, right?
At the time, she was going through a divorce, fairly messy at that. So it was extremely difficult for her at that time. So definitely took a toll.
Mm-hmm. Shannon?
Paul, do you ever get a chance to interact with any of your patients directly?
I do. I have the pleasure of interacting with them still to this day, but my full belief is that, initially starting the organization, I was service coordinator, I was an assistant, administrative assistant, answering phones, sending out letters, doing whatever I needed to do to learn about the positions that were going to be part of this organization. So I know directly what it is that my staff experience on a daily basis, both the hardships and the great things.
And what does it mean to you to be able to help 4,000 people a year?
Amazing. Just to know that, to have such an impact, and know that, coming out of grad school, being told that, you might not be able to help everyone, but not even looking at the number, but just looking at the fact that I am able to help such an immense group of individuals is great.
Matthew? Oh, Matthew, your microphone turned on. There we go.
Paul, let me ask you. Some people have a business and it's completely separate from the personal life. You and your business seem completely intertwined. Your business is an expression of you. How so?
Correct. So initially, opening up the organization, my whole mantra was that the organization has to be representative of me. That's the one thing that I felt was missing in a lot of businesses, and that's nothing negative towards them, but that's just
how is it representative of you? How is the organization representative of you, and how has the organization developed you?
So it enabled me to, most importantly, come out as a gay man.
How'd that happen? Was it the success of the business and the fact you were making tons of money, and all of a sudden, you felt comfortable with yourself?
Really, money had nothing to do with it. It was more my staff. My staff put the trust in me. I had, we're extremely diverse. And there were, we had many individuals that also identified as LGBT, and they gave me that strength to be true to myself.
So this is not where the boss yells and screams at people and fires people. This is where the boss is. There's no boss. You're part of the team, it sounds like, where there's really relationships going forth, back and forth between the different members of the team. Am I right about that, or am I reading it the wrong way?
You're absolutely right. I mean, that's what it is. We're all one team. We all work together. The fact that I'm an executive director has no meaning. It only has meaning, if you want it to. It's what you do with the role that matters.
Matthew, what were you thinking?
I wanted to ask about your grandfather. Your grandparents came over with your mom from Russia. And you talked about the women in your life, and your grandfather kind of seems to be the one constant male in your life. So tell us a little bit about him.
He basically drove, our family. He was the one working. My grandmother was working as well, but he was that male figure that, along with my uncle, of course, but he was that male figure that I looked up to.
So when you're at work today and you have difficult decisions, do you hear your grandfather talking to you, and what does he say?
All the time, continue to move forward or else.
And how did he show you that when you were a kid? Like, give me a specific example.
Honestly, just being there for me.
In what way?
In a way, coddling me. Knowing that I had it in me, never giving up, and just showing me the love and compassion.
It's funny because you say coddling, but he also sounds like he's kind of tough, pushing you forward. And right, how do you balance? Yeah. How did he balance those two things?
Miraculously, he did. I mean, he knew how to. I look up to him and still do.
He knew how to do what?
He knew how to juggle a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Between taking care of his family, working, crazy hours, with the struggles that were along with it. So
what chunk of your grandfather are you bringing to work every day as the executive director?
He's with me every day.
What are you talking 100%. About? What do you mean? 100%.
He's always there.
What always. Part of him? What's he telling you? What are you thinking? How's he influencing you?
Consistently knowing that, we're moving forward, we're doing this, you're doing this for a reason. And this, you're helping an immense amount of people.
Wow. It doesn't sound like it's like a business. It sounds like it's a purpose.
It is. Every day.
What do you mean?
There are so many individuals that are struggling in our community and they don't have a voice. And it's about time that they do. So if the least I can do is be that voice for them, but also be that voice along with all of my staff, then that's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm. What's the website address for this organization known as Patient Care Coordination?
It is patientcarecoordination.org.
Patientcarecoordination.org. We've been speaking with Paul Rimar, who is the Executive Director of Patient Care Coordination here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. That's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment right after this break. Please stick around.
Recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, Executive Leaders Radio. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable. Yes, this radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors for free exposure.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Bill Evans, CEO of Liberty Fox Technologies. Bill, what is Liberty Fox Technologies?
Thanks, Herb. Liberty Fox is a software development company focused on building the applications that power people's businesses.
And how old is this business?
Coming up on 10 years.
Mm-hmm. How old are you?
34.
So you were 24 when you started this business. Didn't you know most businesses fail?
I've heard that many times, but I didn't want to be one of those statistics.
Mm-hmm. Where are you from originally?
Northeast Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. And how many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
I'm the oldest of three, a younger brother and a youngest sister.
8 to 14, what were the primary activities you were involved with, 8 to 14?
I was very adamant in Boy Scouts. I played a little bit of basketball, and I loved being a nerd geek on the side.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Drew?
So tell us about the Nerd Geek. When was the first time, you messed around with a computer?
Yeah, actually about 8 years old. My father would build computers for the business he worked for at the time, and working from home meant physically bringing the parts home to assemble them. I think I asked him so many questions that he gave me a box of parts and told me to go have fun. Shortly thereafter, I came back to him and asked him for the install discs, and I had figured out how to put the computer together.
What does that mean to you? Like, what was the impact of being able to do that? What did that tell you?
I think at the time I didn't realize it, but I just realized that, I'm a really good problem solver. I think I actually get that from my father. He's one of the most intelligent problem solvers I know. And just being able to kind of assess a situation and figure out a solution is something that I've prided myself on since that time in my life.
Roland?
Yeah, Bill, in the green room, you drew an analogy between the box of spare parts and what you do for your clients. I don't really get that. I mean, most technology isn't just sort of plug and play.
I wish it was, but a lot of times everybody's businesses are unique in their own way. You can't just use homogeneous software that just works for everybody. So taking what they're using and bringing it all together into a way that fits them is what we focus on and pride ourselves on.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, Frank.
Bill, you said you participated in Boy Scouts. How young were you and how long did that experience last?
I think I started in Scouts at 5 or 6 years old, and I was in it through my mid-teens.
So what was that experience like and what you learned from Scouts?
Well, I mean, the Boy Scouts motto is literally be prepared. So you learn a lot of life lessons. You learn everything from how to sleep in the middle of the woods with, nothing but, not even a shelter, all the way through, how to look at the stars and aim yourself north. So kind of learning the diversity of capabilities in life and being able to apply that both in life and business, I think was very invaluable.
So what is it about you and your skill set that makes you a good problem solver?
I think that I'm very good at being able to see point A to point B. I feel like no matter what situation, I can always determine a next step. Not necessarily that it would be easy or difficult or anything in between, but always being able to see what that next step would look like and how to get there is something that I work hard at.
Shannon.
Well, who was somebody that you looked up to as a kid?
I definitely looked up to my grandfather. He was a role model in my life.
Tell us more about that.
Well, my grandfather was a very hard worker. You knew he loved you, but he was definitely like tough love. Like you really got to work hard in life. He also had a very diverse life, from being an entrepreneur himself through working on the Manhattan Project and even racing in NASCAR. He really had a lot of diversity in what he did.
And what did you learn from your grandfather that you carry with you today at work?
You have to work hard. You have to have fun, but you have to work hard before you can have fun. You must always make sure that, your affairs are in order and that everything is humming along before you take a break, but make sure you enjoy that break.
Mm-hmm. Bill, tell us about your mom.
My mom is one of the most genuine and loving people I know. A lot of our friends and family refer to her as a living angel because she's very, very compassionate.
Are you more like your mom or your dad?
I think I have a pretty good blend of both. I try to exemplify my mother's sympathy and empathy for others, not that my father doesn't. And yet at the same time, my father's side, I think I've gotten his problem-solving skills, and I'm proud of that blend.
And you just said your mom's a living angel. And you told us before that people have said that to you. Tell me a little bit about that.
My mother is, she really tries to help everybody that she can touch in this world. She cares about everybody. She prays for everybody. And anybody that is a part of her life is affected by her. And she really just tries to make a difference in everyone.
We've had people on this show who were out mowing lawns and shoveling snow and things like that. Did you shovel snow when you were a kid?
Yes, but not as a business. Part of my mother taking care of the community was go shovel the neighbor's lawn, and don't you dare ask for money. They need your help, and you're going to help them. So a little bit of servant leadership has gone a long way.
How's that make you feel when people describe your mom as a living angel to you?
Feels phenomenal. I really do have two awesome parents and a great family, and seeing them work together as a family unit has been a huge influence on my life.
That's great. Now you also, I'm going to change topics here, but you also were involved in some big legal transaction recently, which you described as a new chapter. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I ran Liberty Fox alone for just shy of 10 years, and we just began a new chapter. Liberty Fox was acquired by a holding company, GPMF Holdings. So we are now part of a greater ecosystem with a heavy focus on healthcare. So I'm really excited. We have a powerhouse behind us now. I have team members, and I have a board that I share with. So it's a whole new chapter for me to learn and evolve, and for my team, and I'm very excited for our future.
So did you give up control and now someone else running the thing?
Well, yes and no. Of course, I had to give up control to merge into a larger group, but, making sure that I came into a company that had an awesome culture of fit and very well aligned with us, I still feel like I'm me. I still feel like we're running the same company, and I just have, Yet at the same time, I have amazing people at my fingertips with, awesome advice and feedback.
Was that cultural fit important to you in doing the deal?
I wouldn't have done it without that. I needed to join an organization that, can be serious, but can, be witty and tease me along the way. And, that's the kind of personality and culture that we've created at Liberty Fox. And I would not have done it if I didn't feel that it was a perfect unison of culture.
Mm-hmm. Frank?
So, Bill, in your business, you talk about what can we do to make it better. Why is that important to you, to make it better?
Well, because I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of people, when they're using software for their businesses, they have to go, select something off the shelf and try to force their business into the software. And my whole business model is to break that concept and say, no, let's make the software fit you. Your business is unique. Your business is powerful in its own way. That's why you've grown. So why should you force yourself into a piece of software?
So you feel comfortable merging into a larger organization, which is interesting because from the age of 24, my guess is you didn't have a lot of other full-time jobs. You started your own business, you took a risk, you bled 24/7 to be able to control your own domain, but yet you're like happy and you're feeling safe in a larger organization. And I'm wondering if that has anything to do with the fact you felt loved and supported as a child with your parents.
Herb, you're probably right in a lot of ways. I definitely, I choose to trust first when it comes to meeting new people. And I'm not saying that's always, worked out, but 99% of the time it does. And, I think moving into this larger organization, I think it makes a lot of sense for my team and myself, and creates opportunities that we could have never had before. So it was really just synergetically beneficial for everybody.
So you weren't allowed to charge money to shovel the snow. I'm curious, how young were you when you realized you could make money off of this computer thing?
Probably 13, 14.
Tell me about that.
Well, I started actually playing around on websites and learning how to write computer code at about 13, and started helping out on websites, doing kind of like a little bit of side work here and there. And then a lot of the neighbors, I was the neighborhood kid that would fix their computers. And, and back then $10 was awesome. I could go to the movie theater and, so I did a lot of little computer repair before I got into software, but definitely.
How did the people in the neighborhood find out you were doing the computer repair?
Who do you think? My mother.
What'd she do?
Oh, well, she was telling her friends in the neighborhood that I got into computers and I was really smart with them. And sure enough, they were like, oh, well, my kid downloaded a virus or they downloaded this or downloaded that, and before I knew it, there was computers piling up at the front door with little notes on them of what needed to get fixed.
Is that so?
Yeah. Yep.
So your mother was your first very proud salesperson, it sounds like. To this day,
both my parents, but my mother definitely.
When you were thinking about doing this acquisition, doing this merge, did you talk to your mom and dad about it?
Oh my God, many, many times. They are some of my closest advisors of my life.
Mm-hmm. What would the website for Liberty Fox Technologies? What's your website address?
LibertyFoxTech, spelled TECH.com.
Let me have that one more time, please.
LibertyFoxTech.com.
We've been speaking with Mr. Bill Evans, CEO of Liberty Fox Technologies here on Executive Leaders Radio. And Mr. Matthew Shapiro, would you please give us the rundown on who we've had the opportunity of hanging out with today?
I'd love to. It's been a really great show, Herb. We started off with Bovaird Nevins, the president of PIDC. Then we had Matthew O'Mara, the co-founder of Spraoi. We had Paul Rimar, the executive director of patient care coordination. And we just wrapped up with Bill Evans, CEO of Liberty Fox Technologies.
I would like to thank my co-hosts, Shannon Lane, Newmark Knight Frank, Drew Hanlon, Matthew Shapiro Obermeyer, Roland Mosselman at Align Analytics, and even Frank Hennessy from Premier Planning for giving me a hand structuring the questions. Hopefully providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.